Welcome to MedShark Insider with Bill Fukui, your expert host on all things medical marketing and SEO.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to another edition of MedShark Insider. And today, with so much going on about AI, and it is the hot thing, I've got a really good resource for you today. Ben Stover, he is with AI Med Consult. He is he's a founder, chief commercial officer. He runs the place, kind of thing. So, any case, he's going to share some really great insights with you. Not just on, I think everybody thinks of, AI and marketing in aesthetics as just ChatGPT and Google AI, overview results. But there's way more to it than that. There's ways that you can leverage AI, and that's what we want to talk about today. How can a practice leverage AI in a way that they're comfortable with, and that they can start embracing more and more of this technology, which we know is going to happen. So, hey, welcome to the show, Ben.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Bill. It's good to be here.
Well, could you do me a favor? I kind of know you, but why don't you share a little bit of your background, kind of, where you came from and why you got into AI?
Sure, happy to. So I've started my career about 20 years ago in tech sales. So I've come up through the startups and scale-ups at various stages. Had the opportunity to spend about a decade with Philips Healthcare and worked my way up to leading a business unit for Philips. So did the Fortune 500 life for a long time and sort of got to experience what it was like to be an intrapreneur leading a business unit inside a very large, corporate entity. Philips, of course, I think at this point is getting close to being 140 years old as a company. So it's an incredibly powerful name. That they were one of the first companies that invented X-ray technology many, many years ago, and they're still sort of at the forefront for imaging, medical imaging. So through that process, I was blessed to be able to get into a position where I was able to start investing in my own companies. I've got a series of companies that I've invested in and helped scale over the years as I slowly transitioned out of the corporate world. And the primary company that I'm really focused on right now that I've been a part of for the last few years since we founded this is AI Med Consult. So a very close friend of mine who I admire greatly, serial entrepreneur who's also done the Fortune 500 earlier in his career, our CEO, James Vaughn. We had been friends for many years. He was starting to sort of put the pieces around building this company based on his relationship with our other founder, Dr. Alberto Sessa, who is a practicing surgeon here in Florida. And a lot of the idea came from his experiences in his own practice. How can I use AI to solve some of these common puzzles, these problems that I'm having in my practice? It was sort of that one simple initial thought that really had a ton of value to it. And through my experience, Dr. Sessa's experience, and Jim's experience, and a handful of other really, really talented folks that can do AI things that are just above my head, even as an AI founder. It took us a couple of years to build this thing and test whether or not it was viable. And we're at the stage now where we've seen that it's working for customers. So it's sort of been an exciting journey. I think we're at the cusp of seeing some pretty interesting changes, not just for what we do, but really how artificial intelligence is going to impact aesthetics industry, cosmetic and plastic surgery, but really our global economy as a whole. I could talk ad nauseum about really the incredible impact that we're at the cusp of experiencing.
Yeah. Now, and you mentioned Dr. Sessa. He's a cosmetic surgeon out of Florida.
Correct.
And we had the luxury of, I had the luxury of meeting him. Short story. I was actually on a panel, a cosmetic panel with other surgeons. And one of the surgeons said, I'm going to cut my talk short because I'm going to introduce Dr. Sessa because he's going to talk about something that I think everybody should know about. So he even kind of interrupted his talk time, to
Yeah.
have Dr. Sessa on the panel, which I was, I was at first I was like, what's going on with the panel kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he introduced Dr. Sessa, and we started talking about how he was implementing AI in his practice. And that just that's how we got connected eventually, right?
Yeah.
I listened to him and I said I was fascinated by his experience, what he found when he started leveraging AI in his practice. He saw some incredible results, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
that was the impetus for us to have this conversation. And, I'm going to start, knowing that you understand the business of aesthetics and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I think where we can start is just, where do you see the biggest gaps when it
Mm.
comes to practices spending money and actually getting a return on investment
Sure.
and those types of things? That's the gap. And I think that's where we're looking at AI to maybe help fill some of that gap.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going back to Dr. Sessa, and since he is our longest running also customer who pays us full price for the platform, and is we have a ton of data over a year, year and a quarter now of data. He and our other customers that have been the longest running, I think answering your question through a case study is the best way to do that. There is an incredibly potent sort of flywheel dynamic that occurs when you're doing the right things and making the investments at the marketing level. If you want to think about the top of your, what we would call a sales funnel or a marketing funnel, is how do I get more uh, patients to visit my
Sure.
website, my social media platforms, all those kind of things. I like to call that shots on goal. How do I get more shots on goal? When you do that and you have something in between, in the middle of that funnel, that can help you convert more qualified leads into paying patients, something very magical happens. And I think Dr. Sessa and some of our early adopter customers are incredibly strong case studies there. They're repeatedly seeing anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000% ROI per month on our spend, because of its ability to take what they were already doing well. They already had beautiful websites. They were SEO optimized. They were, doing local service ads and other things like that in intelligent ways, and to understand. So they had a really good, robust marketing system going, but their close and capture rates, for a number of different reasons, were suffering. We can get into the details on some of the office staff workflows and how challenging that can be for a staff of most of these practices have maybe 2 or 3 office staff, or the bigger ones maybe have a bit more. But even so, there's this sort of if you ever study the book Scaling Up, there's Vern Hanish writes about the Rockefeller habits, which is, for any
Mm-hmm.
business owner, is an incredible resource. But he talks about what these are in the series of scale as you grow your company, these valleys of death, which is where
Mm-hmm.
you're just on the cusp of getting to the next level of growth, but you're not big enough yet to afford more resources to help you maintain that growth. So you have
Right.
this, instead of this sort of upward trajectory, you have these little divots that you have to get through to get there. And I think a lot of practices that are scaling and growing are experiencing that. You can't afford to hire 2 more staff, but that's what you would need to have to really engage optimally with all of the patient leads that you're getting. So I think where the AI comes in is taking those high volume, lower impact actions away from your staff and the surgeons themselves, and giving your time back to be able to focus on high impact, lower volume tasks. So it's sort of a 2 + 2 = 6 scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's breaking the typical paradigm by having, again, good shots on goal from proper marketing, like what you folks do at MedShark, um, with higher conversion closing rates using an artificial intelligence. And of course, we have a preference on AI that is a specialist, bespoke for the practice and for the industry. We can get into that later. But I think that's sort of the secret sauce, and that's what we have seen in the case studies with our customers.
You kind of touched on that, that gap, that when it comes to staff, right? Staff
Yeah.
is, we all know that as good as a provider may be, um, he could only or she can only do what she can do when the rest of the pieces and people are in place to get that patient in front of them,
Correct. That's
right?
right.
And with staff, I was just on the phone yesterday, and I was talking with the practice that, they're dealing with turnover. Now I've got a
Hmm.
new turnover, and now we got to redo training. We got to redo all these things.
Right.
And and like you said, there's these plateaus, and you're doing really great, and then you kind of flatten off or dip a
Yeah.
little bit. It's though that's what happens. Life, right? Life happens
Yep.
in a practice
Yeah.
just like anything else. Um,
That's right.
and what we do find, even when the staff is consistent, that we have the same staff members, when we
Sure.
track the conversions of one person to the next or the next, if I have multiple ones, we find that there is a huge,
Absolutely.
range between what percentage one person is doing relative to another. And we always say, oh, well, I want her on, to
Yeah.
do all, but there's only so much one person can do, right? And
Absolutely.
we have that one person who's the hero doing a lot more than just that. They're the PCC, they're intake, they're also doing count, in the room with the doctor. They're everywhere, right? They
Right.
can't be everywhere.
Right.
What I think that you guys might be able to bring, or if practices embraces AI, is a consistency.
Correct. Absolutely.
Consistency in creating predictable outcomes, right?
Right.
I think that's the magic of sales, right? Sales processes and everything else is, how can we do things consistently and know that when I'm feeding leads into a funnel, that I know based on these channels, X is going to come out in terms of, right? But that big variable is that intake and the quality of the intake, the
Yeah.
quality of the follow up, those kinds of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You've got two sort of dynamics that play out on a daily basis in the practice. So you've got during office hours, right, and all of the things that you're mentioning
yeah,
there about consistency of our people. What other activities do they have to manage with patients that are coming in house, right? Your ability to even star salespeople, right? Let's say you've got the best engagement coordinators on the planet. People are inconsistent. I've been in sales my whole career. I've seen some incredibly strong salespeople. We are still human beings. We have on and off days. Whereas a highly trained AI that is good enough to be conversational and has the depth of knowledge about your industry, about your practice, it is entirely consistent. You're talking about 99.99% accurate versus even great, salespeople or great coordinators. They're going to have off days, and they're also going to be busy. Their mind's going to be taken other places. And AI is infinitely scalable, so it can engage 1 or 50 patients simultaneously with the same exact level of rigor and approach, and it doesn't get tired, it doesn't need a break, it doesn't get frustrated at his kids or whatever it is. So that's dynamic number one during the day. The other dynamic that we've seen a huge and part of the real reason that Dr. Sessa was so frustrated and was looking for how to use AI is what happens after hours. So many of our leads that we see hit our artificial intelligence products within our customers' ecosystems, they're after hours. So you don't have anybody in the office to engage anyways. These patients they're researching you maybe during the day, or they're kind of Googling, cosmetic surgeon near me or whatever that is. But a lot of the times when they're ready to have a conversation or learn more, get more serious, it's after hours. So you've got this huge gap between when the patient is hottest from a lead perspective, when they're most interested, versus when you actually have staff available to engage with that patient. So bridging that gap with, our product suite includes full-blown online consults that help guide the patient through the journey of selecting procedures that are right for them based on the goals that they share with the AI, and based on seeing a visual representation of different parts of the bodies and how that practice specifically can help them meet their goals. We also have an incredibly robust chat-based, artificial intelligence, which is what a lot of people would think of as a traditional chat bot. It looks very similar, but the sort of devil is in the details with how much more conversational, how much better its depth of knowledge is, and its ability to kind of sell patients on the practice and on the procedures. And then we also have AI voice receptionist, which is the ability to have that same AI with as many different voices and attitudes. Even we could voice clone. If I personally like your voice a lot, Bill, so I would clone your voice and use it.
I would never record my voice.
But we can do that, and that way it's manning the phones either after hours or all day long, because again, we you talk about sometimes secret shopping or having the doctor call their own practice. See how hard it is to get through. I mean, our teams, when we're reaching out even to our own customers, it can be a challenge during the daytime to get them to answer the phones because they're busy doing other things. So we really built our AI platform to be a force multiplier, not necessarily a replacement of staff. We want you to be able to do more with what you already have. Basically, do a lot more with a lot less effort. That's our goal.
The thing that you kind of mentioned in terms of after hours.
Yeah.
Right. And chat. And when we talk about chat or lead gen kind of stuff, it could be people want to text and chat. In fact, my daughter, that millennial age, young parent, she's got a couple of young kids. I used to think of millennials. I'm much older than you are. I always thought as millennials as these young kids, right?
Right.
They are now driving our world, our economy. They are the decision makers today, right? Yeah. And they grew up digitally, right? My daughters used to be, even when they lived at home, they would text me, "Hey, Dad, it's time to eat."
That's absolutely right.
I'm like, I go downstairs and said, "Don't text me. Just come on up and say, hey, Dad, it's time to eat. It's dinner time, right?"
Yeah.
No, they would prefer, and the perception is they can get as much and as high quality information through texting as they can in a conversation. Yeah. I completely disagree, but that's the perception.
That's their perception.
They can get what they want without having to pick up the phone and actually talk to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we started leveraging live chat services and live text message, answering services that actually engage with people instantly.
Yeah.
We found that just by adding them to a website or in their pay-per-click advertising landing pages and such, we saw anywhere from a 20% as much as a 60%, but I would say on average, a 40% increase in overall lead generation just by doing that, by not spending more money on paid ads or doing more SEO work. We were getting more leads with the traffic that we were already getting. Right.
That's right.
And, one of the concerns that I had was I don't want to cannibalize telephone calls, especially during the day. Right. If I get a phone call, man, I want my staff to be able to answer those. Somebody's got to answer those. Right. But I didn't want chat to basically replace phone calls because I think phone calls are the highest quality. What we found is it didn't affect phone quality or the volume of phone calls we were getting. Yeah. It was a segment that didn't want to call and a segment that didn't feel like sending an email was fast enough to get what they wanted, right? Because I want it now. This filled a void, right? In consumers, how they want to communicate. And we found that it filled a gap. And it wasn't that it pirated the value of other lead gen platforms. It was just not there. Nobody was doing it. So people would just leave without engaging. So I think the chat, if practices aren't leveraging some form of chat, text messaging, instant communication, or the perception that I can get what I want right now, they are missing out on just basically free business.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think it's so important to recognize sales and marketing are opposite sides of the same coin. They're intimately integrated with one another, but there is a transition once you start to have a patient engaging with you, they've already found you, you're transitioning now into the sales realm. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sales is the art of not blowing it. You're saying you've got this lead that wants it. You want to make sure that your chat, your AI, whatever you're using, is good enough to attract and to keep that patient engaged, rather than it says something dumb, or it sounds like another basic chatbot that says, "Hey, give me your
Yeah.
info, we'll call you later." That's very off-putting. You also have to think, whether it's millennials or Gen X or boomers or whomever, we are all just tired of giving our information.
Mm-hmm.
We're all getting texted, spammed all the time, getting emails constantly. It's tons and tons of noise. So in this day and age, giving up your cell phone number and your email address is it's like one of your most prized possessions. You're like, I don't want to have to go through
Yeah.
another unsubscribe, issue. So it's so much more powerful if you can provide value first. Of course, as business owners, we need that contact information. We got to get
Completely
it.
agree.
But you can now use AI to qualify the patient ahead of time. First off, to make sure it's even a lead you want to, work.
Right.
There might even be BMI disqualifications, right? You might not be able to do that procedure with that patient. So there's all kinds of ways that you can help qualify the patient using AI. And then once you've provided value and you've kind of given them the answers that sell them on the practice and sell them on the procedure, then you get them in the office and you have your normal workflow. But all of those questions that you and your staff have had to answer 100 times a day, that are the basic entry questions of just qualifying the patient, that's done. And
Mm-hmm.
at least the way we do it, your staff and the surgeons get access to the full transcript, whether they call us or have a chat conversation with us. You get to see the whole transcript of what that patient spoke about. So what are their concerns? What are their interests? All those things ahead of time. So I think it's really important to recognize that, don't blow it. You've already done all this work. You need some sort of AI powered chat or some means of engaging that patient to take over the sales side of it and help get them into the office. And, to your point of, some people like calls and some people like chat and some people like to, email, which is becoming a little less common, but I kind of see it as an analogy of different bait for different fish. You want to do all of the above, right? Sophisticated business owners know that nothing's a sure thing. It's all about increasing my probability of success. So if you can, for a very attractive price point, do all of the above, that is the optimal path, because you're giving yourself the highest chance of winning the types of patients that you want.
The process, what you're right, marketing and sales, two sides of the same coin, right? When I get with practices, and we all know this, that most of the people in a medical practice or even an aesthetic practice, they weren't trained as salespeople.
Sure.
They were trained as service or clinical staff, right? They're either, they're very attentive, they've got great service,
Yeah.
they're service oriented, they've got the right personality, all those kinds of things, right? That's all really, important. But what we find is that if you're able to offer warmer leads, people that have already shown interest, people that are already, now the staff doesn't have to be this polished salesperson. They can wear that persona of service or, information without the pretense of being, I've got to get their name, I got to get their, I got to sell,
Right.
sell.
Sure.
It kind of gets them into the sales cycle after that. Now they're seen as somebody who's helping them, not necessarily pitching them.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And no matter where your practice staff is at on that spectrum of sales skill, let's call it, even if you've got the best of the best, that means that person is probably going to be able to close that hot lead like this. I mean, rather than it taking them a 15 to 30 I was on an onboarding call with a new practice last week, and the practice manager was saying, it typically takes me 45 minutes of my time to win a patient over and close a patient. With the AI, that drops to like 10 minutes. It's just confirming the appointments.
Yeah.
It's here, reiterating some of the things they've already talked about. So think about what you can do with your business if your star performer's time gets tripled or quadrupled now, because they don't have to, spend 45 minutes with each patient just to get them in.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Um, Here's another question when it comes to practices embracing this,
Sure.
right? We know for the business savvy practices the value of leads. It's the Glenn Glagher Ross,
Yeah.
those Maury's leads. The
Coffees for
leads are
closers. Yeah.
so valuable to a practice.
Yeah.
If a staff member, in fact, when we do staff training, I would tell them, do you know what the cost of a lead is in your practice?
Right.
And most of them, zero. They have
Yep.
no idea. So
Hard.
they don't treat them with the same kind of, if I said that lead to generate that phone call cost $200,
Hmm.
and that means $200 comes right out of this practice with every one of those phone calls,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Now all of a sudden the perception of the value of those leads kind of goes up. Now all of a sudden, wow, it's that now it's important, right?
Absolutely.
Practices that even the more savvy practices that understand what their cost per leads and their conversion rates and all those kinds of things are, I would say that's that top 10%, right?
Sure.
The rest of the practices may say they do, but they don't really know
Yeah.
hard
Or they have
data
partial
to show it.
visibility,
They
right?
kind of get an idea, I know
Yeah.
roughly,
Yeah.
but the ones that really get it, how do you talk to a practice like that to say, Susie's been answering my phones for the last 10 years and she's a superstar. I don't trust somebody to implement an AI solution
Yeah.
and I want her. Why would I have, how can I trust this? Right.
Right.
It's that insecurity of AI and HIPAA and
Yeah.
everything. I don't, I don't trust this yet.
Yeah. No,
Right.
these are
How do
all
you
very
address
fair
that
questions.
practice?
I think it is important that practices are critical of the tools. I think they're, to be frank, as someone who's worked in health tech almost my entire career, I think there is a bit of an oversaturation of overpromising in tech. And or maybe it works, but the way the visibility into how well it works is poor. So these are all kinds of things that we're really big on building out of our system and making sure that our customers have full visibility. You can see from the very start of the patient journey all the way to the end, integrating with your EMR. We have bidirectional exchange between your website, your social media, our AI, and your EMR, and it flows through all of that to give you better and better visibility on what is your customer acquisition cost, what's working well, what all of these kind of deeper level insights we're going to give you on the, giving up control sort of thing. You might have that, again, that star person that's been doing it for years. That's fantastic. What happens when they leave? They get sick. When they go home? Again, a single individual, that is not a scalable business model. That means you've got a single point of failure. If anything goes wrong with that person ever, your entire business suffers. And it's not the same as, a large acute care center where maybe there's hundreds of people working there. Your practice is relying on that one person. It's a one hinge point that as soon as that fails, who knows, your practice is, set back a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever it is. I think it's the combination of having that really fantastic person with AI tools that make their lives easier, make your lives easier, and give them hotter, more qualified leads. That's where I like to look at AI as an augmentation to what we do, is what people do in
Mm-hmm.
the world. I'm not a big proponent of AI replacing people. I know as it gets better and better, there will be consolidation in certain roles. I understand that in different industries. It's already happening on the software engineering side
Oh,
because AI
yeah.
is so good at coding. But I'm a huge believer that it will shift our economies, that it will allow us to force multiply and augment what human beings are doing. So you still have that one staff member that is, critical. Your whether it's your office manager, your marketing director, or whatever it is, that is doing all the right things, but one person can't scale. You got to give them the tools to help them scale and de-risk what happens if they get sick, they move on, whatever happens, right? So I think those are some of the big things to kind of ask yourself, but definitely be critical, be very critical of the AI, and make sure that you test it ahead of time and you like how it responds.
Yeah, I think beta testing or going to actual sites that are implementing to see
Yeah.
how they work,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
getting comfortable with the responses and how they respond, what they respond with. Do they have, next step conversion
Right.
elements,
Call
or
to
are they
action.
just feeding out good information and letting people get off scot free? So
Yeah.
it has to have a combination of things. Um, One thing that we did talk about in that sales process, you know, uh, we haven't mentioned it, but it is that speed to lead,
Yeah.
you know, the importance of that.
Yeah.
Leads grow quick, grow cold quickly.
Too.
And sometimes if you're not there to answer the phone or respond to them, the opportunity, they're number one, they're disappointed. The
Yeah.
immediate reaction is, oh shoot, nobody's there, or whatever, right? That they're not going to get what they want when they want to get it. So speed to lead is one thing, but the other part of converting more, it's also just because you don't close them on that first call doesn't mean they're not a good prospect,
Right.
right? Just because they don't schedule or book on that first engagement or whatnot, is there, what do practices, what have you seen? I've seen some practices that use, CRMs, and they enter you know
Sure.
the the prospect into a CRM, and they have some sort of marketing automation, emails or texts or things like that. How would you say you guys address that
Yeah.
nurturing part, not only just the conversions, but after the initial engagement? What do you do to keep those prospects? Because consumers
Yeah.
go through a buying cycle, right?
They
There
do.
is a buying process. And I think the Plastic Surgery Society at one time said that when they did the research, they said the average patient undergoes surgery sometimes as much as 9 months to a year after they initially started engaging and looking into it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think you mentioned two really important but related things there. So you mentioned that sort of the dynamic of basically strike while the iron is hot, right? You've got this
Mhm.
hot lead, and how do I engage that quickly? And then you talk about, okay, let's say I've got a really warm lead. How do I effectively re-engage with however many touch points are required to ultimately bring that patient in and get them to move forward? Because you're right, not every lead is going to close the very first touch. In fact, there is research that carries across all industries that shows it takes at least 7 touches, and there's different ways that you can, quantify what a touch is in that environment, in that, world. But 7 touches is average, and in my experience, that's probably less. That's on the low side before you actually move forward and bring a patient in. So I think on the responsiveness, on the strike while the iron's hot side, the number one customer choice criteria for any industry, but especially for local businesses, is responsiveness.
Mhm.
Whether you're hiring somebody to come paint your house, or you're hiring a lawyer, or you're hiring a cosmetic plastic surgeon, the once you've sort of set yourself up as a credible business, you've got your reviews, you've got your website that looks beautiful, you've done the
Uh-huh.
SEO stuff, you're discoverable, they can find you. The very first criteria is going to be, are they responsive? Do they get to me first? So whoever responds first is very likely going to win that lead. So being ahead
Mhm.
of that curve is critically important. And again, your staff can't be omniscient. They can't do that 24/7, 365. You need a way to augment that. So a lot of the, I think, technological advancements of the last, even, let's say last 30 years have been incremental advancements, right? They
Mhm.
help by little amounts to improve that responsiveness, be a little bit better, a little bit faster, all these things. With the advent of artificial intelligence, we are experiencing an exponential shift, not an incremental shift. So
Right.
the difference in how much faster you can be with an AI has completely changed the paradigm of what it means to be responsive. So if you are not leveraging AI, if your team's not getting good at those workflows, you are allowing competitors in your market to get a foothold on that market faster than you. So you're missing out, and you're allowing whoever does do that first to gain more market share, more ground, get more leads faster, right? And ultimately that shows, whether it's in Google reviews or whatever else it is, all of the other factors that also impact how many, shots on goal you're going to get. So
Yeah.
that's the first step, is you have to be the most responsive. Everything else that you've done really well, if you're not responsive, you've wasted all of that. And then re-engagement is, again, going back to the different, how many touches it takes. How can you automate follow-up, which is, any salesperson in any industry will know that is the hardest part of sales. It is the continuous follow-up and being able to keep track of that. When you've done all the right work, you've got your leads coming in, you've been responsive to get them engaged and interested, and now you've got 50 of those that you have to follow up with manually while doing your day job. That is a really challenging dynamic. And again, lots of incremental, I think, improvements there, but we've also built into our software, our platform, what we call our AI-powered patient engagement re-engagement coordinator. So it's essentially a prospecting tool that anytime a patient comes and engages with your AI, they automatically get added into these very configurable, patient-specific drip campaigns that continue to text and email the patient after they've given us their information, until essentially they come in and move forward, or they politely ask you to stop. But that taking that sort of follow-up piece, again, you're buying so much of your time back for you and your staff. It really is, the two of those combined, it's an exponential shift in patient engagement.
Yeah, and I'm being in sales for 30 years, no question. It is, not now does not mean not ever.
Correct.
Right? And timing in sales is everything.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to, be responsive, convert when their interest is hot, but not everybody's ready to make that decision. It's
That's
like,
right.
hey, I just finished filling out my tax return, right? I know how much money I'm getting. That money is already in my head being spent.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
In fact, it was already spent before I even submitted my, my income tax return.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so timing is a big part. So I used to say, hey, if we're going to be doing paid ads, or we got to get these campaigns running, or we've got to get positioned on the search engines or in the maps by spring, because there's a time, an element to this. You got a seasonality, right? So we need to make sure that our marketing is in place, but even our sales, right? Somebody may have reached out to us in December, but they're not ready to do something until, hey, I'm going to be going on vacation, or, hey, I'm going to get my tax return. I've got a lump sum of money that I can now spend on this. Then I'm going to spend it on me. Right.
Totally. Right. Or, maybe you've got a patient, she's 6 months pregnant. She's already planning her mommy makeover. Right. She's not ready yet. She's got some things to do first.
So I think all of, that staying in front of, being top of mind, and actually percolating the concepts or the desire for what they want, right? Just continually reminding them that they're interested in it, right? So I think that nurturing part is such an important part. The other, I'm going to kind of go backwards here.
Yeah.
You had mentioned on the chats, like those chats, people are, there's so many chat bots out there now that when I test them, the very first thing, the vast majority of them, when I click on the chat, they say, hey, give us your name, phone number, email, whatever. It's asking for that up front. I'm like going, what is the difference between that and filling out an email form?
Nothing.
Right?
One extra
You
step.
haven't earned anything, right? You got to earn the right to ask for those things, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like when you answer the phone, you're like, hey, can I get your name, phone number, email? You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I like you yet.
Right. Yeah. You're asking somebody to marry you before the first date. It doesn't make any sense. So it's such a huge thing. Yeah. We call that a gated form or gated engagement, right? So you've put a gate up. They have to do something before you're willing to engage. You know, we have seen so much research that shows engaging with value first, providing something
Hmm.
of value, elicits the reciprocation and the trust and the credibility that you need to actually, get that patient seriously interested, right? They're at various levels of their patient journey, right? They maybe still aren't sure if they even want to have a procedure.
Yeah.
So it's, you got to really meet them where they're at, and you
Yeah.
have to engage them. Just like you're saying, it's a perfect example. If somebody calls your office and you're not personable and trying to, have a conversation with them and engage with them, and you go right to what's your name, phone number, date of birth. I mean, that's
Whoa.
incredibly
Yeah.
off-putting. But
Yeah.
that's
No,
what these
you
forms
have
are doing.
you
Yeah.
have to. It's like anything else. It's we're social people,
Right.
right? People are
Right.
social animals, and you earn the right to advance the relationship,
That's right.
right? And that's personal stuff now, and people are protecting it a lot more today than they did
Totally.
5, 10 years ago. Now
Yeah.
it's like I don't share that with anybody,
Right.
right?
Yep.
I'm resistant to sharing it. So I like the fact that you're able to engage, address questions. So a question that a lot of practices will have is, if I'm asking questions, how does the AI know how to answer?
Sure. Yeah, going back to credibility and going back to not the art of not blowing it. That really comes down to what is that AI designed to do. So, in the advent of AI, saying you have AI is basically like saying you have an employee. It doesn't mean anything unless you can say, okay, what is that person trained to do? What are the workflows? All those kind of things.
Exactly.
And what's the knowledge base? So the starting point with any artificial intelligence is what knowledge base has it been fed, and what training protocols have then been built on top of that to get the most out of it, to get very good at specific specialized activities. So we always talk about the difference between an AI generalist and the AI specialists. So the generalists are the open AI, the ChatGPT, Groks, and Gemini, and Claudes. Those are the market leading generalists. That market is, I think, fixed. I don't think we're going to see any new big players in that space. They have gotten really good at doing a lot of things well. But when it comes down to doing very specific business tasks, they're not designed for that. They're designed to do a lot of things well versus a specialist, which is designed to do a couple things or maybe even one thing exceptionally well. And that is what we've built. So it started with us. It's our own AI. It's not, white labeled or any other version of a
Okay, so it's not just information. The big fear that a lot of practices have is, I don't trust what's out,
correct.
on ChatGPT or Google AI. Half the times,
Yep.
the information is incorrect,
Absolutely.
right? And
Or incomplete, right?
or
So
incomplete. Right.
yeah, and that's okay if you're looking up how to, fix why your television's not working, but it's not okay when it comes to, medical procedures. So, National Institute of Health put out a study towards the end of last year, 2025, that there was between the big generalist models, the Groks and the Geminis and all that, there was a 50 to 80% hallucination rate with regard to medical related questions. And that goes back to this sort of garbage in, garbage out dynamic of what are the knowledge libraries, the databases of information that are going into the AI that are then getting, churned through the artificial intelligence to submit an answer. So they are getting better. They're getting better and better. However, they're still not focused enough. There's sort of this huge aperture versus you want them to be very focused on this procedure at this practice with this patient, right? So we built our AI from the ground up, and then over years, we fed it all kinds of medical textbooks, and through a physician guided process, we tested that and tweaked that. We went through all kinds of things like brevity training, where it has this huge answer for what a neck lift is like, and what the experience is like, the healing experience, the pain, all these kind of things. How do we make it concise so that the answer is ingestible to a patient, right? So and then it's, how do you make it help sell the patient on that, but not be overly salesy, overly pushy, or under. So that sort of modulation was a challenge as well. And then the final piece of the training protocols for us is we've built a secret sauce for how we can very quickly train the artificial intelligence for each practice. So I like to call it a bespoke artificial intelligence for your practice. So it knows who your surgeons are, how many years in business, your locations, your procedures, your price points, nuanced details about, do I use specific type of lasers for this procedure that I like to market? All of those kinds of things, we can train it on that in the matter of a week or less, depending on how fast we can communicate with you and your team. That's, again, it's an exponential change, even between a chatbot, which is basically just saying, give me your information and we'll get back to you. Right.
Yeah, that's basically what they do.
Yeah. That's what ours doesn't even like to be called a chatbot. It gets offended if you call it a chatbot. But very, very big difference.
No, a huge difference. And I think so where do you see, now that you're on, I mean, this is still relatively new to the aesthetics, the plastic surgery industry, having AI assisted intake and nurturing and follow-up and stuff. Where do you see kind of AI growing in this business, and especially on the business development side?
Yeah, I think we're at a turning point with how it's going to impact every industry, but especially in the aesthetic surgery space. I think AI is starting to help practices get a lot more done with that less effort across the board. And so those who get better and better at that, whether it's for patient engagement like what we do, or all kinds of other incredible AI powered solutions that are out there, getting good at that now is going to be the difference between remaining competitive or being swept away by the people that do it best. This sort of, I think the combination of AI automation plus, traditional word of mouth patient satisfaction that
I agree
has to be done with a human being. That's the relationship side of it. The combination of those two, again, it's a 2 + 2 = 6 scenario. It completely changes the outcomes that you can achieve. So I think those who are adopting now and they're getting the repetitions in, they're learning how to use AI in their workflows, are going to gain market share. They're going to gain, higher patient engagement rates, and that is going to have I think a flywheel effect for those practices.
Yeah. No, and I will say, I'm going to end this with a perspective. After listening to you,
Sure.
My wheels are turning, right?
Okay.
My wheels are turning, and I'm going to end with this. For the practices that are not, or feeling like, oh, it's too early for AI, it's not blah. I'm going to tell you that the consumers today are embracing it.
Yes.
Consumers are, in fact, I would say that for the practices that are concerned about not leveraging these things, what you're doing is you're projecting an image that you're not leading edge. And if you're in the medical business, we all know consumers want the best. They want the lead. They'll pay more for that, right? If you go into a waiting room and I've got, or before and after galleries, and these are old photos from the 60s, right? Or whatever. They look dated, right? It's your overall impression of this practice. Are they using the latest and greatest? Don't be afraid of leveraging that, because consumers and your competitors at some point are going to start doing more of this. You don't want to be a Johnny-come-lately. You will lose market share.
Oh, you absolutely.
Right?
You absolutely.
Embrace this first. Be the leading edge, and consumers will be looking at those things. What you may see is, oh, well, it's not perfect or whatever. It's not, at the end of the day, I guarantee you, if you look at it that way, you are going to be behind the 8 ball when you finally engage in it. And consumers will have already thought that you're already passé. What you do is, you need to be the one that goes, wow, I've never had this before, or I've never seen this before. I have not experienced these, it differentiates you, right? Anything that can differentiate you is a positive thing when it comes to reinforcing, trust, when it comes to getting your attention,
Yeah.
all of those things. I think you've got to start embracing this. So I'm going to end with a question.
Sure.
How can people get a hold of you, Ben?
Very
What
good
is the
question.
best way for somebody watching this program that says, I want to look into this? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So happy to have you folks do some research on us. If you go to aimedconsult.com, you can find our website, all kinds of resources there to learn more about us. We're also on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're all of the places that I'm sure you folks are as well. info@aimedconsult.com. That's our overall inbox. My direct inbox is ben@aimedconsult.com. So there I've given value. I've given my most valuable resource out there.
Hey, you've given it away.
I
love it.
But
I
that's
love it.
how you can reach us, and we would love to meet you. And Bill, thank you so much for coordinating this and seeing this conversation.
No, I think you got great information, and I just want to share that with our audience. And there's a good likelihood we're going to need to, because we just started scratching the surface of where AI is going. We haven't even talked about AI search and
Absolutely.
those types of things. But I still want to have you or somebody on your team share more about kind of what's going on in your guys' world with AI, because it's not going away. It's only getting bigger. And I know people are starting to get a lot of stuff on it. I just want to make sure that the information that they're getting is accurate and useful.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think we touched the tip of the iceberg, and that's a good sort of cliffhanger for our next one, is the difference between SEO and GEO and the potency that that's having now in lead generation. So I'd love to be on this again. Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah. Have a great day, Ben.
You too.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for the MedShark Insider with Bill Fukui. Join us next week for another dive into all things medical marketing. All episodes can be streamed at www.medsharkdigital.com/medshark-insider.